Manchester United yesterday, your old team, set themselves up to restrict and try and control Manchester United. Do you feel it was inevitable, though, that City would win, even though Manchester United took the lead?
Yes, I think so. I mean, it's a hard one. I think when you kind of, excuse me, when you look at the way United set up, it actually shows the difference between the two sides. You know, I just go back to when we used to play Man United, Manchester City, or Liverpool, or those teams. It was like, who's the better team? They're supposed to just go for it, okay? Man United can't do that at the moment, They're so far away from Manchester City as far as a club, as far as recruitment, as far as players. That's the only way they could go. There's no other way. There's no point in Ten Hag going, we're going to go to the Etihad and go toe-to-toe with Manchester City. Just can't happen. You get your pants pulled down, you get beat 4-5-0. So that was the only plan that he could go with. And for a certain while, it looked like it was going to work, didn't it? But you can't keep sitting back eventually against those teams because players get tired. And that's what we saw yesterday. Once they got the first goal, which was a wonderful goal from Foden, there was no plan B. Even when they went 2-1 down, there was no plan B. So I think, it was a performance of...
Is that a sad indictment of the coach or a sad indictment of the situation that Manchester United are in and how far they've fallen?
Well, listen, it's not a case of how far they've fallen. It's a case of, can they get... I mean, I hear Jim Ratcliffe saying about, catching up to Manchester City in 2 or 3 years' time. It's not just Manchester City. There's Liverpool, there's Arsenal, there's Tottenham, there's Villa. There's all these other teams they've got to catch up with because they're miles behind these teams. But that's where they are at the moment. And is it a sad indictment? Yes, it is, because every time you see these, these big games, these heavyweight games, you want to see them go toe-to-toe. Man United can't do that. City and Arsenal can do it. Liverpool and City can do it. But Man United are not there yet.
If you were Sir Jim Ratcliffe, did you learn anything yesterday, or did you sort of or was the realisation that you're so far off the pace already there?
But I don't think you should be looking at it as a sad indictment of Manchester United. I think you should be looking at it as the quality of Manchester City. Manchester City are the best team in Europe. Manchester City, in my view, will probably win the Champions League and the Premier League and cement that position. If you look at the two sides, if you want to create this silly narrative that this was a game between two equals and that Man United should turn up in this game and give Man City a bloody nose, then it's a stupid conversation because there's not a player in the Man United side that you'd swap.
Yeah, but Manchester United fans won't feel like that. They want their team to go into a derby and
compete. But that's fine. But you have to be realistic about it. If you create ridiculous scenarios like VAR is going to get everything 100% right, and when it doesn't get 100% right, people start criticising it. If you walk into a game, most Man United fans, besides pride, would have expected to have gotten a hiding from Man City yesterday. And they duly did. They competed for certain factions of the game, but Paul's absolutely right. What is the point of going into a game? There's not a single Man United player that would go into that Man City side right now. So you're looking at you're being completely outmanoeuvred, outmanned, outthought and outplayed in every department. And you might get a day where Man City are 10% off and you're at your best and you get a result. In this instance, what you've got is if you open this game up and you're brave and you play on the front foot, you're going to get beat 5 or 6 by a team that's superior. So what's the point? So Man United did what Man United could do in this game, which is suppress some of the opportunities that Man City had. OK, there's some glaring sitters that were missed by people like Erling Haaland that would have put the game earlier into condition. But the fact of the matter is that Man United is not a progress report that Jim Ratcliffe needs to write now. Jim Ratcliffe is in the door, looking at the situation, evaluating what's going to be. They need to change their recruitment policy, they need to remove some personnel, and they need to install a new culture in there, the culture that was there when he played for Man United, not the culture that's there now.
So when he says, and he did this last week, that it'll be 2 or 3 years before we start challenging, we want to be knocking City off their perch in that time frame, is that realistic or delusion?
Well, I'm not sure if it's realistic, because I think if you actually analyse the Man United team now, and someone just said it, not one of those players would probably get into the City team or even the Liverpool team, not just, so if you analyse the whole team, I thought Onana was very good yesterday, the goalkeeper. I thought he played very, very well.
Do you not think he was down for the third goal?
Yeah, I think
for the second goal.
Second goal, yeah, I think he could have got done better with that, but apart from that, he made some really good saves. But if you actually go from 1 to 11, in old school terms, numbers, then how many of those players are going to be at United in 2 or 3 years' time? I don't see many of them. I really, really don't. Maguire done very well to get back in the side, but if they wanted to sell him at the start of the season, Lindelof is going to be a no. Martinez is always injured. Wan-Bissaka is always injured. So go through the whole team. It's only probably Højlund that you'll probably keep. You think, potentially he can go and be a very good player. Rashford, I think, needs a fresh start. I honestly believe that.
I agree.
So you're talking about a whole... It's not like where you've got a team as a manager where you've got a nucleus You've got a spine where you can go, right, we can build around that. Mate, not having got a spine.
But also, you need to price it. When you talk about this, first of all, you do not want the Premier League dominated by one side, whoever that side is, because then it turns it into the Bundesliga and it becomes less commercially valuable. But the key component to whether Man City will continue to be this dominant force is Pep Guardiola. If he steps out of that dugout, we'll start to go into a different cycle. And it'll be interesting to see if Man City can maintain the same quality. You've got players that are getting older, like Kevin De Bruyne, that will not be there in 2 or 3 years' time at the same level.
That's one of the beauties of Bayern Munich, that they do manage to maintain their dominance despite the fact they keep changing
But
manager.
I don't think the Bundesliga, with due respect, compares to the Premier League in terms of its competitivity. Hence the reasons why Bayern Munich have won it for 11 years, and now they may well lose it this year.
We don't want to get to that stage.
And they nearly lost it last year as well, to be fair.
last
But
day.
the point is that there are various factors that come into play. If the big thing at Man United has been poor recruitment and poor culture, because it's not been focused on because people have got other agendas, which is pocketing the money that Man United brings, if you bring Radcliffe in and he focuses, and I'm not suggesting that Dave Brailsford is a cure for all ills, he's not a panacea. Some of the things he says border upon David Brentisque, but some of the things he does about marginal gains will have benefits. So if you focus on this area, you would expect Man United to make exponential gains by the very nature of breaking up some of the culture. People like Anthony Marshall, gone. Get rid of the rubbish that's in there and start changing the culture, start buying players that understand the value of playing for Man United. Now the next question is, does the fella in the dugout embrace it? There's no point making that decision now. But nobody wants this job right now. If anyone's going to take this Man United job, they're going to take it in the summer because they're going to get a clean deck. Well, why take it now? So he doesn't need to comment on it, Radcliffe, now. No. He just needs to keep his mouth shut and look at what's going on.
OK, let's talk about Ten Hag, because he doesn't believe that the quest for Champions League football is over. This is what he said.
We catch up from January, and it can be a quick turnaround. And we have to go into another final and try to get closer to them. And it can be an advantage, and the 5th spot can be also a Champions League spot. So we have to go for it, but we have to win our games.
The narrative afterwards was that pretty much, and I think Roy said it on the TV yesterday, that there's no chance of top 4. 11 points back at this stage of the campaign to Aston Villa. It's unlikely, isn't it? The only thing they're sort of hanging their hat on now is finishing in 5th place and hoping that the coefficient works in their favour, which again is definitely not guaranteed.
No, listen, but what do you expect Ten Hag to come out and say? They've just got thumped by Manchester City. The last thing he's going to come out and say, it's over, we can't get into 5th, we can't get into the Champions League positions. Luckily there's a 5th place that they can go for.
But does he really believe it? That's probably the question.
It's irrelevant whether he believes it. He can't come out and, and say, oh, well, that's us finished now, that's our season done.
Do you think they can get into the Champions League?
Listen, you never know. There's so many games to go. I mean, the next 10, 11 games are vital. There's so many tough games to go. So you can't say no. You can't say no. But
what would the observation be?
It's going to be tough for him. Let's put it that way. It's going to be tough.
Ten Hag came out and said the Champions League's over for us. What do you think the observation would be?
It depends how he said it.
He would get slaughtered.
Not necessarily.
He would get slaughtered. He would have people saying a defeatist mentality, a mentality that exhibits the characteristics that are wrong about Manchester United right now. Players reflect the leadership. Leadership reflects the ultimate equation that's been happening in this club for the last 10 years. He's got to turn around and say there's still an opportunity and we can still do it. And quite frankly, losing to Man City isn't a blueprint for not getting inside the top 4, because they'll beat most sides in the division.
Absolutely, but 11 defeats over the course of the season, not all of them were against Manchester City.
Granted, but we're talking about if you look at their recent form over recent weeks, whilst it hasn't been the most compelling of Man United, with a couple of exceptions in there, they've won games that people would have looked at and thought maybe they'll struggle in. Look, it's Man United, and everything with Man United, I maintain the view, Man United get far too much attention for their performances on the field. And because of their history and because of their legacy and because of their place in the affections and minds of people around the world, Man United get attention. Like we'll talk about Man United this morning, and even if more people will talk about a Man United loss than they'll talk about a Man City win. That's the nature of Manchester United.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the TalkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. TalkSPORT.